Russian President Vladimir Putin has condemned North Korea's latest missile launch as dangerous but warned against intimidating Pyongyang. Speaking in China, Putin called for a peaceful solution to the ongoing tensions on the Korean peninsula, Russia's Sputnik news agency reported. "I would like to confirm that we are categorically against the expansion of the club of nuclear states, including through the Korean peninsula," Putin told reporters. "We are against it and consider it counterproductive, damaging, dangerous," he said. In comments that appeared aimed at the U.S., he said that intimidating North Korea is unacceptable. For its part, North Korea said the missile test was in response to the nuclear dangers and threats posed by the U.S. and its followers. "We will conduct ICBM tests anytime and anywhere in accordance with the decisions made by our central leadership," North Korea's ambassador to China Ji Yong said at an impromptu press conference at the country's embassy in Beijing Monday. North Korea tested a Hwasong-12 missile Sunday, which reached an altitude of 2,111.5 kilometers, 1,312 miles, and flew 787 kilometers, 489 miles, according to state news agency KCNA. Analysts estimated its ranged as 4,500 kilometers, which would put the U.S. territory of Guam within its reach. A small island in the Pacific, Guam is home to Andersen Air Force Base, through which the U.S. Air Force rotates heavy bombers including B-1S, B-2S and B-52S. KCNA said the test showed North Korea has all-powerful means for retaliatory strike should Washington take any military action to stop its nuclear weapons program. Putin made the comments on the sidelines of the One Belt One Road summit in Beijing, a meeting of 29 heads of state convened by Chinese President Xi Jinping to push his vision for China's global expansion. The Russian president called on all parties to find peaceful solutions. Putin's partial defense of North Korea came after White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer suggested that the missile test may provoke a more forceful response from the Kremlin. In a White House statement released Sunday, Spicer said, "With the missile impacting so close to Russian soil, in fact, closer to Russia than to Japan, the president cannot imagine that Russia is pleased." The U.S. and Russia also offered differing estimates for where the missile splashed down. The U.S. said it terminated flight just 96 kilometers, 60 miles, from the Russian port city of Vladivostok, whereas the Russian Defense Ministry said it landed 500 kilometers, 311 miles, from its Pacific coastline. While Russia and North Korea don't have strong trade ties, they are building on their economic relationship. New ferry services are running between the countries, and Russia has given permission for some 50,000 North Koreans to carry out manual work on projects in Russia. Russia is one of the few countries that has diplomatic relations with North Korea. Kim Jong-un's father, Kim Jong-il, went to Moscow on a state visit during his rule in 2011, and Putin visited Pyongyang in 2000. While Russia is concerned about North Korea and its missiles, it also sees North Korea as an opportunity to gain leverage with the West, the U.S. in particular, said Matthew Chance, CNN's Moscow correspondent. Russia doesn't want North Korea to have nuclear weapons, but the response from officials in Moscow has been minimal because they know Russia isn't one of Pyongyang's targets, he added. Last month, Russia and China backed a United Nations Security Council resolution condemning a previous missile launch, demanding that it immediately cease further actions that violate resolutions. The United Nations Security Council, UNSC, will meet on Tuesday to discuss Pyongyang's latest defiant move. Since U.S. President Donald Trump took power in January, rhetoric has ramped up on both sides. Senior U.S. officials made it clear early on that the Obama administration's policy of strategic patience on North Korea had failed. The Trump administration declared early on that the waiting was over, and followed through by deploying a U.S. strike group, led by the aircraft carrier the USS Carl Vinson, to the waters off the Korean peninsula. North Korea responded with threats and accusations. The US has recognized that direct military confrontation didn't work all that well last time, didn't have the effect that they had desired, so we'll let further developments play out in the UNSC, Baker said. Russian President Vladimir Putin said Monday that North Korea's latest missile test was dangerous, but warned that Pyongyang was being intimidated and called for a peaceful solution to regional tensions. "We are categorically against the expansion of the club of nuclear powers," Mr. Putin told reporters after an international forum in Beijing, adding however that we must stop intimidating North Korea. Russia has disputed U.S. claims that the missile launched on the weekend landed dangerously close to the Russian city of Vladivostok. The United States said on Sunday that the North Korean medium-range missile crashed into the sea just 60 miles off Russia's Pacific coastline. But Russia's Ministry of Defense said its early warning systems had tracked a missile that landed more than 300 miles from the coast and never posed any threat to Russian territory on its 23-minute flight. The North Korean rocket followed a trajectory away from Russia and at a significant distance, the ministry said in a statement on Monday morning. This missile launch posed no threat to the Russian Federation. North Korea said on Monday that the missile it launched over the weekend was a new type of medium-long-range ballistic rocket that can carry a heavy nuclear warhead. A jubilant leader Kim Jong-un promised more nuclear and missile tests and warned that North Korean weapons could strike the U.S. mainland and Pacific holdings. North Korean propaganda must be considered with wariness. Pyongyang has threatened for decades to reduce Seoul to a sea of fire, for instance, but Monday's claim, if confirmed, would mark another big advance toward the North's goal of fielding a nuclear-tipped missile capable of reaching the U.S. mainland. Some experts, including officials in Tokyo, estimate that Sunday's launch successfully tested a new type of missile in Pyongyang's arsenal. South Korea's military said on Monday that more analysis is needed to verify the North's claim. The test is also an immediate challenge to South Korea's new leader, Moon Jae-in, a liberal elected last week who expressed a desire to reach out to North Korea. Pyongyang's aggressive push to boost its weapons program also makes it one of the Trump administration's most urgent foreign policy worries, though Washington has struggled to settle on a policy. North Korea's official Korean Central News Agency called the missile a new ground-to-ground medium-long-range strategic ballistic rocket, and said the Hwasong-12 was capable of carrying a large, heavy nuclear warhead. The North Korean dictator was said to have witnessed the test and hugged officials in the field of rocket research, saying that they worked hard to achieve a great thing, according to the North Korean Central News Agency, KCNA. The missile flew for half an hour and reached an unusually high altitude before landing in the Sea of Japan, the South Korean, Japanese and U.S. militaries said. The rocket, newly designed in a Korean style, flew 787 kilometers, 490 miles, and reached a maximum altitude of 2,111.5 kilometers, 1,310 miles, the North said, and verified the homing feature of the warhead under the worst re-entry situation and accurate performance of detonation system. North Korea is not thought to be able yet to make a nuclear warhead small enough to mount on a long-range missile, though some outside analysts think they can arm shorter-range missiles with warheads. Each new nuclear test is part of the North's attempt to build a nuclear-tipped long-range missile. Kim said the North would stage more nuclear and missile tests in order to perfect nuclear bombs needed to deal with U.S. nuclear blackmail. State media paraphrased Kim as saying that the most perfect weapon systems in the world will never become the eternal exclusive property of the U.S., strongly warning the U.S. should not disregard or misjudge the reality that its mainland and Pacific operation region are in North Korea's sighting range for strike. The launch complicates the new South Korean president's plan to talk to the North, and came as U.S., Japanese and European navies gather for joint war games in the Pacific. The president expressed deep regret over the fact that this reckless provocation occurred just days after a new government was launched in South Korea, senior presidential secretary Yoon Young-chan said. The president said, "We are leaving open the possibility of dialogue with North Korea, but we should sternly deal with a provocation to prevent North Korea from miscalculating." Mr. Moon, South Korea's first liberal leader in nearly a decade, said as he took his oath of office last week that he'd be willing to visit the North if the circumstances were right. The UN Security Council will hold closed consultations about the launch on Tuesday afternoon, according to the UN mission for Uruguay, which holds the Council presidency this month.